Chapter 4, Kinds of Sentences. There are many types of sentences, and the four main types are simple, compound, complex, and compound-complex. A clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb that functions as part of or all of a complete sentence. And there are two different kinds of clauses. One is an independent clause, which could also be called a main clause, and the other is a dependent clause or a subordinate clause. An independent clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb that can stand alone and it still makes sense. So another way to think about that is an independent clause is a complete sentence. A dependent clause, however, is a group of words with a subject and a verb that depends on the main clause to make sense and to have meaning. So when you are ready by itself doesn't mean anything. When you say when you are ready, we can go, then you've got your we can go being the main clause or that independent clause, and the dependent clause is giving you more information about the independent clause. Now there were those four types of sentences. The first one is simple, it's just one independent clause. Then there's compound, two or more independent clauses. And there's a complex sentence, which is one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. And a compound complex sentence, which is two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. One way we can look at that is these simple equations. If you're really good at math and you're not a big fan of writing, then think about it this way. A simple clause is just one IC, one independent clause. The compound sentence is one IC, comma, one of the fanboys, which are those coordinating conjunctions, and then another IC, which is an independent clause. So one IC, comma, fanboys, IC. No big deal. A complex sentence is one IC plus one DC. DC is a dependent clause. So a simple sentence, if you go across to the next section of blue, you've got a complex sentence. It's made complex by that dependent clause. Now if you look at the compound sentence, it's that the two independent clauses connected by fanboys. The compound complex sentence right over here is a whole mess of possibilities. Now one option is independent clause plus dependent clause, comma, fanboys, independent clause, period. Another option is dependent clause, comma, independent clause, comma, fanboys, IC plus DC. And basically you have to have at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause plus your coordinating conjunctions. Those sentences are really long and a little bit difficult to construct in a grammatically correct way. So if you're struggling to do that, first make sure that you've met all the rest of the requirements, that it has an independent clause and a dependent clause, that you can identify the subjects and the verbs. Before you try to make a really long and impressive sentence, make sure you're actually saying what you want to first. I can tell you that when I'm writing, I prefer to use complex sentences, and sometimes I'll often use compound sentences. The compound complex sentences are really special. They're for special occasions. It's like that special outfit that you wear out that one night and you don't wear it any other time. That's kind of what a compound complex sentence is. So don't overuse them. Use a comma before a coordinating conjunction, like fanboys, between the two independent clauses. So fanboys have been explained within your textbook, so find that in your book. And then you have using a comma after a dependent clause that appears before a main clause. Notice, look at this sentence. Both sentences have the same information. When the bus arrived, comma, we quickly boarded. The next sentence is we boarded quickly when the bus arrived. Look at those two. What is the main difference? They have the same information, the same independent and dependent clauses. The only difference is the comma. If the main clause comes first, don't use a comma. Use a semicolon between two independent clauses in one sentence if there's no coordinating conjunction. So no fanboys, and you can use a semicolon. If there's a fanboy in the room, you may not use a semicolon. You may only use a comma.